Good evening. Thanks for joining us on Business 360. I'm Shireen Bhan. The headlines we're tracking for you this evening. The Sensex and the Nifty gain for the fifth day. This is the longest winning streak in 2 months. The Nifty reclaims the 25,000 mark. Government introduces a bill proposing to ban the $25 billion online real money gaming industry. The centre claims broad political support, argues for larger social good by curbing addiction and debt spiral. But Karnataka's IT minister calls a blanket ban a knee-jerk and bad policy making. The government opposes Vedanta's demerger plan at the Company Law Tribunal, flags inflated revenue and concealed liabilities. SEBI says Vedanta modifying the demerger plan after getting a no-objection certificate is a serious breach of the master circular. Kremlin lays down the talk of imminent meeting between Putin and Zelensky as the US and EU begin drafting security guarantees. Trump rules out deploying US troops in Ukraine but hints at air support. Kyiv claims 14 people injured in Russian attacks across the Sumy region. India's Foreign Minister Jaishankar arrives in Moscow for bilateral discussions. The Russian ambassador to India expects crude oil trade between both nations to remain unchanged, despite tariff threats from the US, says there is no alternative to Russian oil as it is offered at a 5% discount on average. India and China set to resume direct flights and border trade in a bid to reset the bilateral ties. China also promises to lift curbs on the export of rare earth. An expert group will be set up to resolve border standoff, and a working group will be set up to maintain peace at the border. Shares of Hindustan Aeronautics rise after the Union Cabinet clears a 62,000 crore rupee FighterJet deal. HAL will supply 97 light combat aircraft to replace the MiG-21 fleet, which will retire next month. Chaos in Parliament as Home Minister Amit Shah tables a bill to remove ministers detained on serious charges for more than 30 days. The bill will also provide legal framework to remove the Prime Minister and Chief Ministers. Well, it's a busy day in Parliament, but it's also an action-packed day for the stock market. The market's closing higher for the fifth straight session, making the longest gaining streak in 2 months. Nifty ending above 25,000, and this is the first time that we've seen that in nearly 2 months. So that's the Nifty. Closing above 25,050 is where it closed, 213 points higher on the Sensex. The Nifty Bank, though, down by about 160 odd points today. In the mid-cap index higher by about 0.5% or so. Prashant standing by to wrap up the market action for us. Day 5 and gains continue, Prashant.
Well, fifth day of gains for the Nifty. The market, the index ending about 1/3% higher. Broader markets doing a little bit better. Nothing, compared to the outperformance that the broader market saw to the Nifty yesterday or the day before yesterday. Today it was milder. So those indices ended up. Nifty Bank, interestingly, ended slightly lower, about 1/4% down by the end of it. But it was IT, and I will come to stocks in just a bit, which shown up with some action. So large caps, I'll start with IT. Infosys was the big one, 3.5% move. TCS and Tech Mahindra were not far behind either. FMCG, Nestle, HUL, Tata Consumer also on the Nifty, which did quite well. In terms of cuts, there was Bharat Electronics, but small, nothing large. Bajaj Finance and Shriram Finance were the three names which lost between 3/4 to about 1.5%. The big gains in the broader market coming through in, actually, again, nothing to do with A or B sector, but very disaggregated. Ola, for the second day running, huge amount of volume. I think it's done 25% in 2 sessions flat. Godfrey Phillips was up yesterday. It's up today. Protean, has had a catastrophic fall from 1,700 rupees to 800, coming up a little bit. Bluestone, recent listing. Carborundum Universal was up sharply. HLE Glasscoats having a fantastic week. There was a company called Denta, which is up for the last 3 sessions now. Newland Laboratories, Intellect Design, Travel Foods again is a fairly recent listing. Sula Vineyards, our story. They're going into harder stuff as, compared to just being in the wine space. Sky Gold, Eco Lighting, Sai Silk, which is Kalaman. These were some of the other stocks which really participated. But, no real common thread through any of these except the fact that some of them have been really sold off quite hard. Some cuts coming through as well. Nazara, of course, is the obvious one. Again, news-related. Aurobindo was down from the word go. Hyundai, Tilaknagar Industries, Goldium, and something like a Sterlite Technologies were also slightly lower. I think 5 days on a trot, almost making up for that 6-day drawdown that the Nifty had seen. We'll see if the market's able to get above the so-called Lakshman Rekha, which is, an important retracement of the entire fall. And then, I mean, you basically will start to flip from being in a slightly downward, sideways kind of trend to maybe asking for higher levels. We'll watch that space. Back to you.
Yes, we will. Prashant, many thanks for joining us. The top story this evening, the Union government has tabled a bill that proposes a sweeping ban on online money games. IT Minister Ashwini Vaishnav introduced the bill in Parliament today. Now, the bill highlights the proliferation of online money games has had a harmful impact on family, society and the economy, and it's called for prohibition, which essentially means a ban. Regardless of whether the games are based on skill or chance, there is no differentiation. Either skill or chance, it doesn't matter anymore. If there is a fee or a deposit, then you are considered an online money game. The bill also proposes to constitute an authority for regulatory oversight. That's not all. It also provides an insulation to the government or the authority for any actions taken by them in good faith, but does not clarify further. The move comes as a body blow to the gaming industry, which is paying taxes to the tune of 22,000 crore rupees to the government. That was the number for last year. The Gaming Federation, in a letter to the Home Minister, has urged for progressive regulation instead. The IT Secretary, while defending the bill, told me that the political leadership was clear about the need to act against online money games. Karnataka's IT Minister, Priyank Kharge, has called a blanket ban a knee-jerk reaction and bad policy making. We will come to that in just a bit, but first let's go across to Ashmit, who decodes the bill for us. Ashmit, very clear, there is no room now as far as online money games are concerned. It doesn't matter whether you're skill or chance. That's the death knell now as far as online money games are concerned, with this bill being tabled in Parliament. Ashmit.
Well, the government clearly has its mind made, saying that there's no room available as far as online real money gaming is concerned. The bill's been tabled in the Parliament. What highly placed sources within the government tell us is that there's unanimous support across party lines, going on to say that this is an issue that's affecting the society, saying that 45 crore people are affected in the form of losses. The losses estimates say, as per the government, these losses stack up to over 20,000 crore rupees on an annual basis, and that's the reason why there was a need felt for the government to intervene. As a part of this intervention, this bill very clearly spells out complete prohibition, complete curtains on any form of online real money gaming. In fact, real money gaming has been defined in the bill as not making any distinction between what is skill, what is chance. All forms of real money gaming are prohibited. Endorsing, advertising such platforms is also prohibited. Banks, financial institutions are prohibited from allowing any transfer of funds from the user to such platforms. What the government says is that through this bill, they want to recognize that the users are in fact victims, and therefore there is no legal penalty for them, but there are definitely teeth. Those found violating these rules, these provisions of the bill, could face jail terms as high as 3 years. There could be penalties as high as 1 crore rupees, and not just that, even for companies that are found violating the provisions of this bill, they could potentially face legal action. The bill clearly says that people in decision-making positions in those organizations, in those companies, could also be liable to face legal consequences.
The jurisdiction of the bill actually, in a sense, has an extraterritorial jurisdiction. It applies to entities outside the country who are offering it in India. That is there right in Section 1 of the bill itself. Section 69A of the Information Technology Act 2000 can be used to block online money gaming, which comes whether it is within the country or from overseas. We will have to keep monitoring when these games come up, and we have the capability to do that. And as and when it comes up, we'll have to keep consistently blocking new sites which come up, new portals which come up, new ways in which it gets offered. Now, that is an implementation challenge, and that is what the civil service and the entire machinery of government is there for. We have to implement the law which the Parliament would enact. The number of jobs created are in their thousands, and the number of livelihoods affected are in their hundreds of millions. The industry itself claims that 450 million people play these games, many of whom are distressed. And I think parliamentarians, ministers, and others who understand the distress of their constituents are very forthright in saying that this is a serious issue. So we have to balance. We have to balance between what is in the overall social good, and many of these people have talent and will find jobs in the legitimate gaming sector, which is being encouraged.
Well, that is the Métis Secretary defending the ban on online money games, saying that this is in the needs and interests of society and there is political support across party lines for the same. But how will this move impact real money gaming industry and listed companies like Nazara in particular? Now, the Nazara stock saw some sharp cuts in trade today. Vinny is standing by to give us the details. Vinny.
Right, so absolutely these gaming stocks were the ones that were in focus today, and this has obviously come in after that government has approved that online gaming bill which was tabled today for real money games which are likely to be banned. So that impacts all these online gaming apps and online gaming companies as well. Now Nazara Tech, what is the risk that we face here? Now Nazara Tech overall had invested 46% in Moonshine Technologies, that is the pokerbazi business of the company. The net revenue for pokerbazi in Q1 was around 191 crores. Now, 46% means it's an associate company. It's not a subsidiary of the of Nazara Technologies. So, associate company revenue is not included in Nazara Technologies revenue. That is why the company said and clarified that currently there is no impact of Moonshine Technologies in terms of the revenue because it's not included, so it doesn't come in terms of impact coming in on the EBITDA front as well. Now, obviously, the loss that pokerbazi is facing, that is something that comes in on the bottom line front for the company. So, loss figure, that is something that is there. That's where the impact comes in. But other than that, the bigger impact is of that 46% investment that they've made in Moonshine Technologies. 800 crores is what they'd invested. There's around a 200 crore more CCPs that they have, which is convertible, preferential shares which are there, which was convertible 2 to 3 years later from now. So that is not a worry, but that 800 crore investment is a worry because if this business doesn't exist or there are issues that come in on this business, then they will have to start writing it down. That will impact the balance sheet of the company. So the risk of this investment write-off, possibility of that front is a fear that comes in if this bill goes through. That's a major concern that even Prabhudas Leeladhar highlighted. And they said that pokerbazi even accounts to around 35% of the SOTP EV valuation of Nazara Technologies. So that if this goes through, this ban comes through, then they would have to revise the target price downward as well. 35% is a big chunk over there. Now let's talk about Delta Corp. Delta Corp also had that online gaming business, but they divested this business in 2024-2025 and they sold it to Head Digital Works, and that was at a price of around 491 crores. 51% stake is what they had sold completely, and now they only hold 5% stake. So not a major investment there, doesn't impact their revenues, bottom line, nothing on that front as of now, and that is why Delta Corp recovered from the day's lowest point. But Nazara Technology, the risk of write-off is a big concern of that 800 crores in pokerbazi, and that is what has led to the sharp fall in the stock today.
All right, Vinny, many thanks for the big corporate story. We are tracking today. Shares of Vedanta declining in trade after the government objected to the company's demerger in the National Company Law Tribunal. Now, the centre has claimed that it has serious objections with the demerger, flagging inflated revenue and concealed liabilities. The market regulator SEBI has also said that the company modified the demerger plan after getting a no-objection certificate. Ashmit is back with us now to take us through the government's argument and what this means for Vedanta. Ashmit.
Well, Vedanta demerger facing twin hurdles at the NCLT in the form of the government as well as the market regulator, SEBI. Now, let's bear in mind, the NCLT was hearing an application filed by Vedanta for its demerger, seeking a sanction, seeking a legal sanction. But there were two hurdles. Number one, the government, the MOPNG, the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas, coming on board to say that it has strong objections, saying that this demerger should not be allowed. It has strong objections. The government submitted that it finds itself in a position where it will be unable to recover the dues coming to it, going on to say that there has been lack of disclosure by Vedanta, there's been concealment of some important details by Vedanta, that in some cases the revenue has been overstated, liabilities have been understated, and all of this has led to a situation where the government is front and center opposing Vedanta's demerger application. That was, however, only one part of the story. The other part is with respect to SEBI. Now, even the government, as a part of its submissions, had clarified that Vedanta had tweaked, had modified its demerger scheme after getting the nod from the exchanges as SEBI. That is something that was also seconded by the market regulator. SEBI was present in NCLT. They submitted that there indeed has been a modification. This is a gross violation, a serious breach of its master circular, and that it has issued an administrative warning to Vedanta. This warning needs to be tabled before the board of directors of Vedanta for their consideration. So clearly, twin hurdles here. One SEBI, two the centre. The next hearing is on September 17th.
Ashmit, many thanks for joining us. Vedanta responding to that, saying that they are even willing to issue a corporate guarantee to the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas. Up next, chaos in Parliament as Home Minister Amit Shah tables a bill to remove ministers detained on serious charges for more than 30 days. That and more when we get back. Well, the big global story just days after the Alaska summit and Zelensky's visit to the White House, the Kremlin is playing down talks of any imminent meeting between Russia's President Putin and Ukraine's Zelensky. President Trump is calling for a trilateral summit between the US and Russia and Ukraine. The European Union has begun drafting security guarantees. Trump has ruled out deploying US troops in Ukraine, but has signaled at the potential of air support. Amidst all of this, Russian attacks on Ukraine continue. Kyiv claims 14 people injured in Russian attacks across the Sumy region. Russia's ambassador to India expects crude oil trade with India to remain unchanged despite the threat of US sanctions. Russia's envoy says Indian refineries receive around 5% discount on an average, which they will not get anywhere else. He also added that India and Russia will further develop a currency payment settlement system. He also said that the Trump administration's secondary sanctions on India are illegal and the pressure on India is unjustified.
The positive outcomes of the Russian President Putin visit to the US last week, after that, President Trump, as far as according to the reports, decided not to impose additional tariffs on India. But whatever happens, if whatever are the disruptions globally, so we are very much capable to resolve them for the mutual satisfaction with India, and we will just continue our partnership as we do, despite any external threats.
Well, that's Russia's ambassador to India saying he expects trade to remain unchanged. India and China, meanwhile, are set to resume direct flights and border trade in a bid to reset the bilateral ties. China has also promised to lift curbs on exports of rare earths. All of this after China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi visited India, and Prime Minister Modi is set to visit China later this month. Parikshit standing by now to take us through the details. Parikshit, this has been work in progress over the last several weeks now, and of course it's been picking up momentum. The story that we broke about flights likely to be resumed now confirmed.
Absolutely, and both sides are working towards incrementally resuming, re-engaging economically, and also possibly bringing some stability at the border as well. We haven't seen full disengagement, but during the talks, both NSA Doval and Wang Yi acknowledged that there is at least peace and stability at the border. The Ministry of External Affairs, after the conclusion of these meetings at the level of foreign ministers, the call on by the Chinese foreign minister and the Prime Minister and his meeting with the NSA Ajit Doval, has gone on to say that there is a need to take a political perspective of the overall bilateral relationship while seeking a fair, reasonable, mutually acceptable framework for the settlement of the boundary question. This is the main reason why we have been having tensions, disputes between India and China for decades. Having said that, new mechanisms have been decided upon by the two sides to somehow disengage and bring peace at the border. This includes an expert group to look at an early harvest boundary delimitation in the India-China border areas, working group to be set up to maintain peace and tranquility in border areas, and creation of more mechanisms in order to bring stability in ties in eastern, middle sectors, in addition to the western sector. Now, let me speak about the economic partnership, which is very critical. Both sides have decided to resume direct flights at the earliest, so we could possibly see an announcement on that during the visit of Prime Minister Modi to Tianjin, where he meets Xi Jinping. India and China will finalize an updated air services agreement. They have agreed on the facilitation of visas to tourists. India has already started giving visas to Chinese tourists. Also visas for businesses, media, and other visitors in both directions. It has been decided upon to reopen border trade through 3 designated trading points, namely Lipu Lake Pass, Shipkila Pass and Natula Pass, and both sides agreed to facilitate trade and investment flows between the two countries through concrete measures. Now, sources have told us that India has been assured by China that consignments of rare earth magnets, tunnel boring machines and fertilizers have left for China from India. Those restrictions have been lifted, but we really have to wait and see how this pans out over the next couple of months.
All right, Parikshit, appreciate you joining us. That is the latest in the India-China talks. Chaos in Parliament today as members of Parliament almost got into a scuffle. Home Minister Amit Shah tabled a bill to remove ministers who've been detained on serious charges for more than 30 days. The bill also provides legal framework to remove a Prime Minister and Chief Ministers. The legislation has been sent to a parliamentary committee for vetting. Abhimanyu standing by with the details. A controversial bill, Abhimanyu, now going to a select committee.
The bills introduced in Parliament call for removal of any minister in the central or a state government if he or she has consecutively spent a period of 30 days in jail. The bills also allow for reinstatement of any such minister after their release from jail. However, the opposition has termed these bills as draconian and has claimed that they may be weaponized or misused by the union government to destabilize opposition-ruled states and their governments by arresting several ministers and even their chief ministers in several arbitrary cases. It remains to be seen what kind of recommendations would be given as far as any further approvals and any further consultation within the Parliament on the bills is concerned. On the other hand, the rationale behind bringing these bills is to check corruption and also to avoid an administrative backlog or a peculiar situation similar to the one which had emerged in the national capital when Arvind Kejriwal, when he was the sitting Chief Minister of Delhi, he was arrested, and while being in jail, he could not sign several files which led to an administrative backlog, and there was no law which was in place to force the resignation of a minister who's in the custody of a central agency or the police. It remains to be seen what kind of further deliberations and consultation would take place on the bills which already have been introduced in Parliament.
Abhimanyu, many thanks for joining us. A controversial bill being introduced there in Parliament. With that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of Business 360. The news will continue right here on CNBC-TV18. Stay tuned. We're back in a moment.